Act 1. A new dawn of primal reality. You wake up in the year 875. The first thing that assaults your senses isn't the dim light, but the smell. An acrid stench of sweat, smoke, and something you can't identify that makes your stomach churn. Your nostrils burn with the pungent odor of animal fat, years of it mixed with the damp smell of poorly cured hides. The air is dense and heavy, thick with the smoke that seeps through the cracks of the rough wooden walls. You try to move, but your body is stiff, not just from the brutal cold, but from the hardness of what you thought was a bed. Beneath your back, there is only damp straw covered by an animal hide that feels more like a piece of hardened leather. The texture is rough against your skin, and you can feel small fragments of straw digging into your back through the holes of the poorly kept hide. The sounds around you are disturbing. You hear the heavy, irregular breathing of other people sleeping uncomfortably close to you. The constant groaning of old wood under the weight of bodies shifting in their sleep. Occasionally, a low moan from someone dreaming or having nightmares. And beneath it all, the subtle but constant sound of small animals moving in the straw, rats, fleas, and other creatures that share this space with you. Your eyes begin to adjust to the darkness, and you realize you're in a long, low structure. The walls are made of stacked logs with clay and moss, which do a miserable job of sealing the gaps. The ceiling is so low you couldn't stand completely upright. Through the poorly sealed cracks, the freezing wind of Scandinavia enters like ice blades, slicing through any illusion of warmth you might have had. You try to swallow, but your throat is dry and scratchy. Your tongue passes over lips cracked from the cold. There's no clean water nearby, just a wooden bowl with a dark liquid that you're not sure is water or some kind of fermented drink. The smell coming from it is sour and uninviting. As you try to sit up, you feel a sharp pain in your back. There are no pillows, no mattresses, just the straw-covered floor that has become your bed. Your joints crack in a way you've never heard before. The cold has penetrated so deeply into your bones that every movement is a painful effort. Outside, you hear the sound of the wind howling like a wounded animal. It's a sound that penetrates to the soul, wild, relentless, and constant. The wind carries with it the smell of the frozen sea, of rotten fish on the beach, and something more primitive that you can't identify, the raw scent of survival itself. You notice your clothes are different, thick, heavy, and with a strong smell of animal fat. The wool is damp and heavy against your skin. There are no undergarments as you know them, just layers of thick cloth that scratch your skin with every movement. Your hands are rough and calloused, although you don't remember working them this way. A sudden sound breaks the relative silence of the pre-dawn hours. It's the sound of someone coughing violently, a dry, hoarse cough that speaks of lungs irritated by the constant smoke and cold air. The cough is followed by a spit, and you hear the wet sound of it hitting the dirt floor. Slowly, others in the longhouse begin to stir. You hear low grumbles, the sound of bones cracking, and heavy breathing. No one is waking up happy or rested. They are waking up to another day of survival. A figure moves in the gloom near you. It's a woman. She gets up slowly, and you hear the sound of her joints protesting. She walks to what appears to be the center of the structure, where there's a small fire that barely illuminates the room. The embers are nearly dead, emitting only a faint, reddish glow. She kneels by the fire and begins to blow on the embers, trying to rekindle the flames. You can see her face briefly lit by the red light. It is a face aged by hard work and extreme weather conditions. Her hands are calloused and thick, moving with the efficiency of someone who has done this thousands of times. The fire finally catches, and a small yellow flame dances in the center of the longhouse. The light reveals more details of your surroundings. You're in a Viking communal house, a long structure where several families live together. There are partitions made of wood and animal hide, but privacy is a non-existent concept. The smoke from the newly lit fire begins to spread through the longhouse. There's no proper chimney, just a hole in the roof that allows some of the smoke to escape. The rest is trapped inside, creating a dense, irritating atmosphere. Your eyes begin to tear up, and your throat stings. You realize you need to use the bathroom, but quickly discover there isn't one. There's only a hole in the corner of the longhouse covered by an animal hide. The smell coming from there is nauseating, a mix of human excrement, dirty straw, and urine. There's no toilet paper, no water to wash your hands afterward, just leaves, or pieces of dirty cloth. Other people are waking up now, and you can see them better in the firelight. They are hard faces marked by labor and climate. Men with long, tangled beards, hair that hasn't been washed in weeks. Women with faces of years of intense manual labor. Children who look like small adults, already carrying in their expressions the seriousness of those who know that life is hard. No one smiles. No one seems happy to be alive. They are all focused on the task of surviving another day. A small child begins to cry, a weak, tired cry. You realize she is sick. Her skin is pale and she coughs constantly. There are no doctors, no medicines. If she gets better, it's luck. If she gets worse, she will probably die. That's how it works here. Act 2. The burden of survival and the fire of battle. The smell of food begins to spread through the longhouse, but it's not an appetizing smell. It's the smell of something being cooked in animal fat, probably fish or meat that was already starting to spoil, as there's no refrigeration. Food is preserved with salt, smoke, or simply consumed while still edible. You feel hungry, but when you see the food, your hunger diminishes. It's a thick, gray porridge made from grains that seem to have been ground with stones, with pieces of something that might be meat or fish, but it's hard to tell. The texture is gummy, and the taste is intensely salty, almost unbearable to your modern palate. The drinking water comes from an outside. Well, but it's not clean water as you know it. It tastes of earth and something else you'd rather not identify. People often drink weak beer or some kind of fermented beverage because it's safer than the water. You realize your hands are dirty, not just dirty from work, but genuinely filthy. There's no soap, no readily available hot water. People wash when they can, with cold water and some type of caustic soda made from ashes. Your hair is greasy and tangled, and you can feel small insects moving on your scalp. The day is officially beginning now. You can hear movement outside. People walking on the frozen ground, animals being fed, the sound of tools being prepared for another day of hard work. Someone approaches you. A large man with a tangled red beard, his eyes hard and evaluative. He says something in Old Norse that you don't understand, but the tone is clear. It's time to work. There's no time for laziness, no time to adjust. You either work or you don't eat. You either contribute or you become a burden the community can't afford to carry. He gestures for you to follow him, and you realize you have no choice. You stand up slowly, your muscles protesting against the movement. Each step is a lesson in pain. Your feet are cold and numb, your legs stiff from the uncomfortable sleep. You walk to the longhouse door, which is little more than a hole covered by a heavy hide. The full reality of the Viking world hits you hard. The air outside is like a cold slap. It's a cold that cuts through your thick clothes as if they were paper. The wind is constant and relentless, carrying small ice crystals that sting your exposed skin. Your eyes tear up immediately, and you can feel your breath turning into small clouds of vapor that freeze before dissipating. The scenery around you is desolate. The land is rocky and covered by a thin layer of ice and dirty snow. Trees are scarce and twisted by the constant wind. In the distance, you can see the gray waters of the Mae fjord, agitated by waves that look hostile and uninviting. The other structures around are similar to the one you just left. Low, dark, and clearly built to withstand the brutal climate, not for comfort. Smoke rises from small holes in the roofs, dispersing quickly in the strong wind. You see other Vikings starting their days, men sharpening axes and swords on whetstones, the metallic sound echoing in the cold air. Women carrying buckets of water from the well, their movements efficient and practical. Children tending to animals, skinny goats and sheep with dirty, tangled wool that look as miserable as the people. The man who woke you up points to a pile of wood and makes gestures that make it clear you should carry it. The wood is damp and heavy, and your arms aren't used to this kind of physical labor. Each log you lift seems to weigh more than the last. Your back starts to hurt almost immediately. As you work, you realize you're constantly being watched, not necessarily with hostility, but with the constant evaluation of people who need to know if you're useful or a burden. Every move you make is judged for its efficiency and strength. There's no room for weakness here. The work is interrupted by the sound of shouts coming from a distance. You look in the direction of the sound and see black smoke rising on the horizon. Someone screams a word that, even without understanding Old Norse, you recognize by the tone: danger. The Vikings around you stop what they're doing and run to grab weapons. There's no hesitation, no confusion. In seconds, men and women are armed with axes, swords, and spears. Even the older children grab knives. You realize you're not just living the daily life of Vikings. You're in the middle of a culture where violence and death are constant companions. There's no police to call, no army to protect you. There's only you, your community, and the weapons you can wield. The man who woke you up shouts something at you and throws an axe in your direction. You catch it instinctively, but immediately realize you have no idea how to use it as a weapon. It's heavy and unbalanced in your hands. You know that if you had to fight for your life at this moment, you'd probably die in the first few seconds. But there's no time for training. There is only the moment, the threat, and the choice between fighting or dying. The shouts are getting closer now. You can hear the sound of horses galloping on the frozen ground, the metallic clatter of weapons hitting armor. Your breathing is fast and shallow, and you can feel your heart beating so hard it feels like it will burst out of your chest. A woman next to you is praying softly to the Norse gods. Thor, Odin, Frey, names you know from mythology. But here they are, living, breathing realities. She's not asking to survive. She's asking to die with honor, if necessary. This is the concept you're beginning to understand about Viking life. It's not about living comfortably. It's about living with honor and dying with dignity. Comfort is a luxury that doesn't exist. Security is an illusion. There is only the constant struggle against nature, against enemies, and against mortality itself. You look at your hands holding the axe and realize they are trembling, not just from the cold, but from fear. Pure, primitive fear of dying violently in a strange land, surrounded by people you barely know, fighting for a cause you don't understand. The sound of the horses is closer now, and you can see dust being kicked up on the horizon, or maybe it's snow being scattered by the wind. It's hard to tell. Everything in this world seems hostile and threatening. The children have been hidden inside the longhouses, but you can hear their muffled cries through the wooden walls. Even they know something terrible is happening. There's no innocence here. Even the children know the reality of violence and death. You wonder how you got to this point. How did a species manage to survive in such brutal conditions? How did people find the strength to keep living when every day was a fight for survival? But then you look around and see the answer. You see the determination on the faces of the men and women beside you. You see the way they automatically position themselves to protect each other. You see how, even in the face of mortal danger, they don't run. They stand firm. This is the strength that built empires. This is the resilience that allowed Vikings to sail the world's most dangerous seas and establish colonies in distant lands. It wasn't just courage. It was a fundamental acceptance that life is hard and that the only choice is to face it head on. The sound of the attackers is so close now you can hear individual voices shouting orders. You don't understand the words, but you understand the urgency. Your mouth is dry, and you can taste the metallic flavor of fear on your tongue. Someone next to you murmurs a quick prayer and grips their spear more firmly. You realize there is no cowardice here, just acceptance. If they are going to die, they will die fighting. If they are going to live, they will live knowing they faced death and did not retreat. You try to imagine what it would be like to return to your modern life after this experience. What would it be like to explain to someone what it truly means to fear for your life? What would it be like to describe not having any guarantee that you will see the sunset? But these reflections are interrupted. by the first war cry, loud, savage, and completely inhuman. It's a sound that speaks of pure, unapologetic violence. It's the sound of death arriving. And then you realize something. Despite the terror, despite the certainty that you will probably die in the next few minutes, there is something in you that responds to that cry, something primitive and deep that recognizes the challenge and wants to meet it. For a moment, you understand what it means to be a Viking. It's not about conquest or glory. It's about looking death in the face and spitting on it. It's about knowing you are mortal and choosing to live as if you were immortal. It's about finding strength where there should be none, and courage where there should only be despair. Your fingers tighten more firmly around the axe handle. Your legs position themselves better on the frozen ground. Your breathing becomes more controlled. You don't know how to fight, but you will try. You don't know if you will survive, but you will. Do your best not to die alone. And then, the moment the first attackers appear on the horizon, you grasp a fundamental truth about the human condition. We are not defined by the circumstances we face, but by how we choose to face them. The Vikings who lived 1,000 years ago were not superhumans. They were people like you, facing fears like yours, but choosing to stand up when it would be easier to fall, choosing to fight when it would be safer to run, choosing to live with intensity when life offered so little comfort. Now, as you listen to the sound of weapons clashing and war cries echoing through the frozen valley, you realize you're about to discover what you're made of. You're about to find out if you have within you the same untamable flame that allowed your ancestors to survive the most brutal conditions the world has ever known. The first attacker emerges over the hill, his silhouette silhouetted against the gray sky like a vision from hell itself. He is mounted on a frothing horse, brandishing a sword that glints even in the faint light of the cloudy day. His war cry echoes through the air like the howl of a hungry wolf. But you're no longer trembling. Your hands hold the axe firmly, and your feet are planted solidly on the frozen ground. You can feel the blood rushing through your veins like liquid fire. And there's a mental clarity you've never experienced before. It's as if every fiber of your being is finally awake, finally alive. And then you understand why the Vikings not only survived but prospered in a world that should have destroyed them. They discovered that when you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. When you accept that you can die at any moment, you finally begin to truly live. This is just a small taste of what it means to be a Viking. The real test is yet to come, and you're about to find out if you have what it takes to survive in a world where only the strongest, smartest, and most determined get to see the next dawn. The attacker descends the hill like an avalanche of iron and fury. His horse is foaming at the mouth, and you can see the wild eyes of the animal reflecting the same desperation you feel. But there's something different happening inside you. The fear hasn't disappeared. It is transformed into something purer, more focused, as if every cell in your body is vibrating at the same frequency of survival. The man next to you, the one who gave you the axe, shouts an order you don't understand, but your body responds instinctively. You move as a unit, forming a defensive line in front of the longhouses. There is no sophisticated military formation here, just ordinary people who have learned that together they have a better chance of surviving. The first clash is brutal. The sound of metal against metal echoes through the air like the bells of hell. You swing your axe more by instinct than by skill, and by sheer luck, you hit the attacker's shield. The vibration of the impact travels up the handle and makes your teeth ache. Your hands, already numb from the cold, almost lose their grip, but you don't have time to think about pain. Another attacker is coming towards you, this one on foot, brandishing a sword that looks like it was forged in hell itself. His eyes are wild, and there's a foam at the corners of his mouth that speaks of a bloodlust beyond normal human reason. You instinctively recoil, stumbling on the uneven ground. For a moment, you think it's the end. You can see the blade of the sword descending towards your chest. But then, something extraordinary happens. A spear appears out of nowhere and pierces the attacker's chest. It's the woman who was praying next to you. She retrieves the spear from the fallen body with an efficiency that speaks of prior experience. She looks at you for a second, and in her eyes, you see not pity, but a quick evaluation. You passed the test by being alive. Now she expects you to keep passing. The battle around you continues with an intensity that is both fascinating and terrifying. There is nothing romantic or glorious about it. It is brutal, bloody, and decided as much by luck as by skill. You see men you've only known for hours falling with wounds you know are mortal. You see women fighting with a ferocity that rivals the men's. And through it all, you're learning something fundamental about human nature. When all the layers of civilization are stripped away, when all security is taken away, what remains is pure survival instinct, and that instinct is stronger than you ever imagined. The fight lasts what feels like an eternity, but is probably only a few minutes. When it finally ends, the silence that follows is almost deafening. You can hear your own heavy breathing, the groans of the wounded, and the sound of the wind returning to blow through the valley as if nothing had happened. You look around and count the dead. There are bodies scattered across the frozen ground, some of the attackers, some from your own community. The bright red blood contrasts violently with the grayish earth and the dirty snow. It's an image you know you will never forget. But there's no time for prolonged mourning. The surviving Vikings are already moving, checking on the wounded, collecting weapons from the dead, and assessing the damage. Life continues because it must continue. Stopping to fully process the trauma is a luxury they cannot afford. You realize you are wounded. There's a cut on your arm that you don't remember getting. Blood is running down your clothes, but strangely, you don't feel any pain. That will come later, you suspect. For now, there's a lot of work to do. The woman who saved your life approaches with a piece of dirty cloth. She doesn't speak, just ties the cloth around your wound with efficient movements. There's no anesthesia, no antiseptic, just enough pressure to stop the bleeding. You whisper a thank you, but she has already moved away to tend to another, wounded person. The dead must be cared for, but not in the way you would expect. There are no funeral homes, no elaborate coffins. The community's dead are quickly prepared for simple funeral rites. Some will be burned on funeral pyres, others buried under piles of stones. The dead attackers are stripped of anything useful, and their bodies are left for the ravens and wolves. This pragmatic brutality initially shocks you, but you soon begin to understand. In a world where resources are scarce and survival is uncertain, there is no room for sentimentality. The dead cannot help the living, but their possessions can. You spend the rest of the day helping to clean up the wreckage of the battle. Your hands, already sore from the morning's work, are now covered in blood and dirt. You carry bodies, organize weapons, and help repair damage to the longhouses. Each task is a reminder of how fragile the line between life and death is in this world. When night finally comes, you are exhausted in a way you have never experienced before. It's not just physical fatigue, it's an exhaustion that penetrates to the soul. You sit by the central fire of the longhouse, looking at the dancing flames and trying to process everything that has happened. The evening meal is the same porridge as in the morning, but now you devour it with gratitude. You are alive, and being alive means being hungry. Being hungry means having the opportunity to eat again. It's a simple equation you never had to consider before. Around you, the other people are similarly silent. There are no lively conversations about the battle, no boastful tales of heroic deeds. There is only the tired silence of people who have survived another day and know that tomorrow may bring new challenges. A small child is crying softly in the corner. Her father didn't return from the battle. Her mother holds her tight, but you can see in her eyes the same hard understanding you've seen in everyone else's. Life continues even in loss. The child will have to learn this too, sooner than any child should. You try to imagine what it was like to grow up in this world, what it was like to be a child knowing that death could arrive at any moment. How was it to learn that the world was a hostile place before you even learned to read or write? These Viking children developed an inner toughness that modern children would never need to develop. But there was also something more. an appreciation for life that came precisely from its fragility. When you know that every day could be your last, every moment of joy, every shared meal, every night spent in relative safety, becomes precious in a way that people in secure societies rarely experience. You look around the longhouse and see that appreciation on people's faces. They are not happy in the modern sense of the word, but there is a deep satisfaction in simply being alive. Gratitude for every small comfort, the warmth of the fire, the roof over their heads, the company of other human beings. The woman who saved your life sits down beside you. For a long time you sit in silence looking at the fire. Finally, she speaks a few words in Old Norse. You don't understand the words, but you grasp the meaning from her gestures and expression. Today was a good day because you are alive. She points to your wound and makes a gesture asking how you're feeling. You carefully flex your arm and gesture that you're fine. It's not, really. It hurts like hell, and you can feel it will leave a permanent scar. But in the context of this world where much worse injuries are common, it's just a scratch. As night falls, people begin to prepare for sleep. But first, there are rituals to be observed. Someone pulls out a small amulet of Thor and murmurs a prayer for protection. Another makes a symbolic offering to the fire, throwing a piece of food into the flames. These rituals aren't just superstition. They are ways of finding meaning and hope in a world that offers little of both. You lie down on the same straw bed as the night before, but now it doesn't seem so uncomfortable. Your body is so tired that any place to rest is welcome. You pull the animal hide over yourself and close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind keeps replaying the day's events, the feeling of the axe in your hands, the sound of metal against metal, the look in the eyes of the man who almost killed you. You realize you have been fundamentally changed by the experience. There is something inside you that has been awakened, something primitive and powerful that was dormant in your modern life. You think about your previous life, your soft bed, your heated house, your readily available food. These things now seem almost mythical in their improbability. How did a civilization manage to create so much comfort and security? How did we get so far away from the basic realities of survival? But then you realize it's not that your modern life is unreal, it's that you never truly understood what it cost to get there. Generations upon generations of people lived lives like the one you're living now, fighting and dying to gradually build something better for their children. The Vikings around you aren't just surviving, they are planting the seeds of the future. Their voyages and conquests, their technological innovations, their social systems, all of this will eventually contribute to the world you know. They are your ancestors, not just genetically, but culturally. You finally begin to doze off, but you're awakened by the sound of someone moving in the darkness. Your hand instinctively goes to where you left the axe beside you. The paranoia you developed during the day doesn't disappear with sleep. It becomes a part of you. In a world where danger can come at any moment, constant vigilance is the price of survival. But it's just someone going to tend to the dying fire. You relax, but not completely. Part of you will remain alert for the rest of the night. This is how you live when security is an illusion. Act 3. The hardship of the day and the lessons of labor. The second day begins before dawn. You're woken by the sound of movement and low voices. There are no clocks here. People wake up when their bodies say it's time or when the work demands it, and the work always demands it. Your joints are even stiffer than the day before. The wound on your arm throbs with a constant ache. You have sore muscles in places you didn't know existed. But you get up because everyone else is getting up, and lying down isn't an option. The morning meal is the same as always, thick, unappetizing porridge. But you eat it without reluctance now. Your body has learned that it needs fuel and can't afford to be picky. You even manage to swallow the sour, fermented drink without making a face. The day's work is different. Today you're going fishing. Not recreational fishing with modern rods and comfortable gear, but fishing as a means of survival, with heavy nets and boats that are little more than hollowed-out logs held together with ropes. You walk to the beach with the others, and the wind coming off the sea is even more brutal than the wind on land. It cuts through your clothes like ice blades, and you have to lean against it not to be knocked over. The seawater crashes against the rocks with a force that speaks of primal power and indifference to human life. The boats are smaller and less stable than you expected. They rock violently even in the relatively calm water near the beach. You can see that sailing them requires not just courage, but real skill. One wrong move and you'll be in the freezing water. And in the freezing water, you have only minutes before hypothermia kills you. You are assigned to one of the smaller boats with 3 other men. They speak little, but their movements are coordinated by experience. They know exactly how to row in sync, how to cast the net, how to work together to maximize their chances of success and survival. As you push the boat into the water, the first wave that hits the hull splashes icy water on everyone. It's so cold it literally takes your breath away. Your lungs involuntarily constrict, and for a moment you can't breathe. But the others don't even react. This is normal for them. Rowing is harder than it looks. The oar is heavy and clumsy, and the water offers more resistance than you expected. Your arms, already sore from the work and the battle of the previous day, start to burn almost immediately. But you keep rowing because to stop would mean letting the others carry your weight, and that's not acceptable. The net is cast with practiced precision. You row in a circle, gradually closing the circle around a school of fish that one of the men spotted. It's a job that requires perfect timing and absolute coordination. One mistake and hours of work are lost. When you pull the net back, it's heavy with silvery fish that glint in the weak light of the Nordic sun. It's a good catch, and you can see the relief on the other men's faces. These fish mean food for several days, oil for lamps, and material for making hooks and tools. But the work is far from over. The fish must be processed immediately, cleaned, salted, and prepared for preservation. There is no refrigeration, so everything not eaten immediately must be preserved by labor-intensive traditional methods. You spend the next few hours learning to clean fish with a knife that is little more than a piece of sharpened metal tied to a wooden handle. Your hands become covered in scales and fish blood, and the penetrating smell clings to your skin and clothes. But you work methodically because every processed fish is a guaranteed meal. The community's women work alongside the men in processing the fish. There is no rigid division of labor based on gender when it comes to survival. Everyone does what's necessary to keep the community alive. You see women handling knives with the same skill as the men, and their efficiency is impressive. An older woman with gray hair tied back and hands that speak of decades of hard work shows you how to properly salt the fish for preservation. She doesn't speak your language, but her demonstrations are clear. She repeats the movements until you can copy them correctly. There is something deeply satisfying about this work. Despite the hardship, you are contributing directly to the community's survival. Every fish you clean is real food for real people. There's no bureaucracy, no middlemen, just honest work that produces tangible results. The sun, weak as it is, begins to set earlier than you expected. The days are short here in the north, and the work must be done in the available light. When you finally finish processing the fish, your hands are numb from the cold and cut in several places by sharp scales. But there's pride in the work done. You caught enough fish to feed the community for several days and did it by working together as an efficient unit. It's a small but significant victory against the forces that constantly threaten survival. The walk back to the community is done in contemplative silence. Everyone is tired, but it's the satisfying tiredness of a job well done. You carry your share of the processed fish, and the weight on your shoulders is a tangible reminder of your contribution. When you arrive back at the longhouses, smoke is coming from the roofs. The women who stayed behind have started preparing the evening meal. The smell of cooking fish mixes with the wood smoke, creating an aroma that, though simple, awakens a genuine hunger. The evening meal is different from the previous ones. There is fresh fish in addition to the usual porridge. The fish is cooked simply, seasoned only with salt and some local herbs, but to your palate, adapted to Viking food, it tastes delicious. There's also a piece of dark, dense bread made from hand-ground grains. For the first time since you arrived in this world, you feel genuinely satisfied after a meal, not just because the food was good, but because you participated directly in its production. You fished this fish, processed it with your own hands, and helped put it on the table. After the meal, people gather around the central fire for evening activities. Someone pulls out a primitive musical instrument, a kind of flute made of bone, and plays a simple but haunting melody. Others sing along with rough but sincere voices. You don't understand the words of the songs, but you grasp the feeling. They are songs about the sea, about battles, about dead heroes and lost loves. These are the ways this people found to process the harsh realities of their lives, to find beauty and meaning in the constant struggle for survival. One of the songs is clearly about the battle from the day before. You recognize some words and gestures that refer to the events you experienced. The battle is already being transformed into a legend, into part of the oral history that will be passed down to future generations. You were part of something that will be remembered. As the night progresses, people begin to tell stories. Even without understanding the words, you can follow the narratives by the dramatic gestures and the expressions on the listeners' faces. They are stories of adventures in distant lands, of gods and monsters, of heroes who faced impossible challenges. These stories serve multiple purposes. They entertain, yes, but they also educate. They transmit cultural values, teach survival lessons, and provide models of heroic behavior in a society without books. Oral tradition is how knowledge is preserved and transmitted. You realize you're watching the birth of myths that will survive for 1,000 years. Some of these stories, passed down from generation to generation, will eventually become the Norse sagas that modern people still read and admire. You are seeing the creation of literature. An older man, clearly respected by the community, begins to tell a story that captures everyone's attention. Even the children are completely still, absorbed in the narrative. From the gestures and the audience's reaction, it's a story about Ragnarok, the end of the world in Norse mythology. The story speaks of a winter that will last for 3 years, of wolves that will devour the sun and moon, of gods dying in a final battle, but it also speaks of renewal, of a new world that will rise from the ashes of the old. It's a story about endings and new beginnings, about the cyclical nature of existence. Listening to this story, you understand something fundamental about the Viking mindset. They didn't believe that the world was permanent or that happiness was guaranteed. They knew that everything would eventually come to an end, but this didn't discourage them. On the contrary, it motivated them to live intensely while they could. This acceptance of impermanence is liberating in a way you had never considered. When you accept that nothing lasts forever, every moment becomes more precious. Every day of life is a victory to be celebrated, not an obligation to be fulfilled. The story ends, and there's a moment of respectful silence. Then, gradually, conversations resume in lower tones. Some people begin to prepare for sleep, but others stay awake, enjoying the warmth of the fire and the companionship. You stay awake a little longer, observing the faces lit by the fire. Each face tells a story of struggle and survival. There are battle scars, wrinkles of worry, but also lines of laughter and expressions of genuine contentment. These people have found ways to be happy despite the adverse circumstances. A small child falls asleep in her mother's lap. The mother holds her tenderly, but you can see that even in this moment of affection, there's a constant vigilance. Her eyes regularly sweep the room, checking for potential dangers. Motherhood in this world requires a toughness that modern mothers cannot imagine. You think about the children of this time and how different their childhood was. They didn't have elaborate toys or electronic games, but they had something that modern children have often lost: real responsibility and the knowledge that they were necessary for their family's survival. An 8-year-old child here has responsibilities that a modern 12-year-old might not have. They care for animals, help prepare food, and learn survival skills, not because their parents are cruel, but because it's necessary. Every person must contribute or the entire community suffers, but there is also a freedom in this responsibility. These children know they are valuable, that their contributions matter. They are not just passive consumers of entertainment. They are active participants in the life of the community. Finally, you get up to go to sleep. Your body is tired in a different way from the night before. It's a deeper but also more satisfying tiredness. You worked hard, contributed to the community's well-being, and survived another day in adverse conditions. Your straw bed no longer seems so uncomfortable, or maybe you're just adapting. You pull the animal hide over yourself and close your eyes, listening to the nocturnal sounds of the longhouse, regular breathing, occasional coughs, the crackle of the dying fire. But before you fall completely asleep, you have a realization. Despite all the hardship, the discomfort, and the danger, there is something in this life you didn't expect to find: authenticity. Every experience is real and immediate. There are no layers of technological or social mediation between you and basic life. When you're hungry, it's real hunger, and the food you eat is food you helped to get. When you're tired, it's from real work that produced tangible results. When you're afraid, it's of real and immediate dangers. When you feel gratitude, it's for fundamental things like being alive and having shelter. This authenticity has a value you had never considered. In your modern life, so many experiences are mediated, artificial, or symbolic. Here, everything is direct and concrete. The feedback from life is immediate and honest. You fall asleep thinking that, despite all its terrors and difficulties, this Viking world has something to teach you about living intensely and authentically. It's a lesson you will carry with you, even if you never have to apply it in such extreme circumstances. Act 4. The Silent Predator and the Bonds of Community. The third day dawns with an unpleasant surprise. You're woken not by the normal sounds of the community, but by shouts of alarm coming from outside. Your body reacts instinctively. You jump out of the straw bed with your heart pounding, your hand already reaching for the axe you now keep by your side. But this time, it's not human attackers. It's something worse. Disease. One of the children who was coughing 2 days ago is now clearly very sick. Her skin is pale with strange red spots. Her breathing is labored, and she alternates between violent chills and a high fever. You don't have to be a doctor to recognize that something is very wrong. The panic in the community is palpable, but it's different from the panic of a battle. In battle, you can fight back. Against disease, especially a disease that can spread, options are limited, and all of them are terrible. You can see genuine fear on the faces of the adults, not of dying in combat, which would be honorable, but of dying slowly from illness, which is considered a death without glory. The sick child's mother is desperate, but her form of despair is strangely controlled. She doesn't scream or cry hysterically. Instead, she does everything she can with the limited resources available. She prepares herbal teas that may or may not help, keeps the child warm, and murmurs soft prayers to the gods. You watch as the community makes difficult decisions. First, the sick child is isolated in a small, separate structure. This isn't cruelty. It's an attempt to prevent the disease from spreading. The mother goes with her, knowing this could mean she will also get sick, but choosing to stay anyway. Other people who had close contact with the child in recent days are carefully watched for signs of the disease. You are among them since you worked side by side with the child's father while fishing. There is a constant vigilance as everyone monitors their own bodies for the first signs of symptoms. The reality of Viking medicine is brutal in its simplicity. There are no antibiotics, no hospitals, no knowledge of germs or infections. There are only traditional herbs, spiritual rituals, and the hope that the person's body is strong enough to fight off whatever is attacking it. You spend the day helping to prepare traditional remedies, even knowing they are probably ineffective. Willow bark is boiled to make a bitter tea that might help with the fever. Aromatic herbs are burned to purify the air. Amulets are placed around the sick child's neck. These remedies may not have real medical efficacy, but they serve an important psychological purpose. They give people the feeling that they are doing something, that they are not completely helpless in the face of disease. In a world where people have so little control over their circumstances, This sense of agency is crucial for mental sanity. The community's work continues, but with a shadow over everything. People go about their daily tasks, but there is an underlying tension, a constant awareness that death might be spreading among them. Conversations are held in lower tones, and there is a tendency for people to keep more physical distance from each other. You participate in an expedition to collect more wood, but even this simple task is affected by the situation. People work more quickly, anxious to get back and check if any new cases of the disease have emerged. There is less casual conversation, fewer moments of camaraderie. The forest where you collect wood is an impressive and haunting place. The trees are tall and dark, with branches that intertwine above, creating a canopy that blocks out much of the weak sunlight. The forest floor is covered with dead leaves and damp moss that muffles the sounds of footsteps. Here you can see evidence of the wildlife that shares this land with the Vikings. Moose tracks in the soft mud, bear scratches on the bark of trees, and occasionally bleached bones of animals that didn't survive the last winter. It's a reminder that even the top predators in the food chain struggle to survive in this environment. The work of cutting and transporting wood is grueling. Trees must be felled with axes that, while well made for the time, are primitive by modern standards. Each blow requires significant force, and felling even a medium-sized tree can take hours of hard work. You learn to work as a team to move heavy logs. There are no cranes or mechanical equipment, just brute human force and techniques that have been developed through generations of experience. Your muscles, already adapted to the first days of intense physical labor, are tested even further. During a break from work, one of the older men points to marks on a tree. They are deep scratches, too high to be made by a man, bear marks. And by the freshness of the marks, a very large bear passed through here recently. Everyone becomes more alert, hands instinctively moving towards weapons. The possibility of encountering a bear adds a new layer of tension to the work. Viking bears are larger and more aggressive than you would expect, and an encounter with one could be fatal for several people. You work faster now, making more noise to discourage any bear from approaching, but also ready to drop your tools and grab your weapons if necessary. When you return to the community with the wood, the situation with the sick child has worsened. Her breathing is more labored, and the red spots have spread. Worse still, another person, an adult man who helped care for her, is beginning to show the first symptoms. The decision is made to temporarily evacuate part of the community. Some families will camp at a safe distance until it is clear whether the disease will spread or be contained. It's a decision no one wants to make. It means dividing already scarce resources and leaving some people more vulnerable to other dangers. You offer to stay and help care for the sick. It's a decision you make almost without thinking, moved by a sense of responsibility to the community that took you in. But as soon as you make the offer, you realize the magnitude of what you've just done. You may be condemning yourself to death, but the Vikings around you accept your offer with a respect you've never experienced before. In their eyes, you have become one of them, someone willing to risk their life for the good of the community. It's a rite of passage you didn't know you were taking, but one that has fundamentally changed how they see you. The next few hours are spent preparing the community for the temporary separation. Supplies are carefully divided, with those staying behind receiving enough for several weeks. Weapons are distributed, and essential tools are duplicated where possible. Every decision is important because wasted resources could mean death. You help build temporary shelters for those who are moving. They are no more than tents made of animal hides stretched over wooden frames, but they must provide basic protection against the elements. Working on these temporary structures gives you a new appreciation for the engineering of the permanent longhouses. As the sun sets, the division happens. Families say goodbye, not knowing when they will see each other again. There are no great displays of emotion, just firm hugs and long glances. The children who are leaving look back with wide eyes, not fully understanding why they are leaving home, but feeling the seriousness of the situation. You stay with about half of the original community. Among you are the two sick people, their immediate families, and others who chose to stay for various reasons. Some out of loyalty, others because their skills are essential for caring for the sick, and some because they simply refuse to leave their home. The first night with the reduced group is strange and lonely. The longhouse, which always seemed cramped, now seems too big. The central fire burns as always, but there are fewer people around it, fewer voices contributing to conversations, less of the warming human presence. The sick child worsens during the night. Her parents take turns caring for her, but you can see the weariness on their faces. They know, although they won't admit it out loud, that they will probably lose their daughter. But they keep fighting. They keep trying everything they know to save her. You offer to help during the night watch. There's not much you can do medically, but you can fetch water, keep the fire going, and give the parents brief moments of rest. It's emotionally hard work, seeing suffering you can't alleviate, facing the reality of human mortality without the buffers of modern medicine. During one of these vigils, you have a silent conversation with the child's father. You don't share a language, but you share the experience of caring for someone who is dying. He points to you, then to his daughter, and makes a gesture that clearly means thank you. You are a stranger who chose to stay and help when you could have left for safety. It is during these dark hours that you truly understand something about the nature of the Viking community. It's not just based on blood ties or legal obligations. It is based on the conscious choice to stick together during the worst circumstances, to share burdens that no one person should have to carry alone. Act 5, the end of an era and the dawn of a new self. The fourth day dawns with the child's death. She stops, breathing in the early morning hours, surrounded by her parents and the small community that chose to stay. There is no dramatic final struggle, just a gradual weakening until the breathing simply stops. Viking mourning is different from what you would expect. There is sadness, of course, but it is a sadness tempered by acceptance. Death is seen as a natural part of life, especially in a world where infant mortality is high. The parents' pain is real and deep, but they carry it with a dignity that speaks of prior experience with loss. The child's body is prepared for cremation according to traditional rituals. Her finest clothes are placed on her. Small personal objects are arranged around the body, and prayers are murmured to the gods to receive her soul. It's simple, but there's a solemn beauty in this simplicity. The funeral pyre is built with special care. Dry wood is arranged in a specific way to ensure it burns hot and completely. Aromatic herbs are added to provide a pleasant smell. It's work that everyone does together, each person contributing to honor the dead child. When the pyre is lit, the entire remaining community gathers around. There is no formal priest or religious leader. Each person offers their own prayers and reflections. The fire burns high and bright against the gray sky, and the smoke rises towards the heavens, where the gods are believed to dwell. You stand watching the flames and thinking about mortality in a way you've never had to before. This child lived only a few years, but her life had meaning for the people who knew her. Her death is mourned by an entire community. There's something deeply human and touching about this simple honor paid to a brief life. After the cremation, there's a funeral feast. It's not a celebration, but an acknowledgement that life continues and must be valued. The food is a little better than usual. Someone contributed some honeyed bread, and there's even a little preserved meat that had been saved for special occasions. During the feast, stories are told about the dead child. Memories of her first words, of mischief she got into, of moments of joy she brought to the family. There is no attempt to pretend she was perfect or extraordinary. It is just an honest acknowledgement of a life that existed and is now gone. You realize this process of mourning is psychologically healthy in a way that modern rituals often are not. There is space for sadness, but also for acceptance. There is time to remember, but also a recognition that life must continue. It's a delicate balance between honoring the dead and serving the living. The adult man who was getting sick gradually recovers. Whether because his illness was different, because he was stronger, or simply by luck, his symptoms diminish over the next few days. There is cautious relief in the community, but also continued vigilance for signs that the disease might return. After a week of separation, messengers are sent to the group that left. Smoke signals are used to communicate that it is safe to return. The disease seems to have been contained, and there are no new cases. It's a primitive but effective communication system that allows for coordination over relatively large distances. The return of the rest of the community is a moment of genuine joy. Families reunite, children run to hug relatives they haven't seen in days, and there's a palpable sense of relief that the crisis has passed. But there is also the somber acknowledgement that a child was lost and that other crises will come. You find yourself treated with new respect by the reunited community. Your choice to stay during the crisis has marked you as someone who can be trusted. There's no formal ceremony or public recognition, but you can feel the shift in how people interact with you. You are no longer a stranger being tolerated. You are a member of the community. This acceptance comes with responsibilities. You are now expected to contribute not just with physical labor, but with judgment and decision-making. Your opinion is sought on issues affecting the entire community. It's an honor, but also a weight you didn't expect. In the following days, life returns to something resembling normality. The daily work continues: fishing, collecting wood, preparing food, maintaining tools and shelters. But there's an undercurrent of melancholy, an awareness that security is always temporary. You begin to participate in more specialized activities. You are taught to make ropes by twisting vegetable fibers, a skill that requires patience and specific technique. You learn to sharpen metal tools using whetstones, a process that is as much art as science. These skills are essential for survival, but also gratifying to master. One evening, you are invited to a meeting of the community's older men. They are planning a trading expedition to a neighboring community, and your opinion is sought on logistical matters. It's the first time you've been included in high-level strategic planning, and you realize you've truly become part of the informal leadership group. The trading expedition represents aspects of Viking culture that go beyond the popular image of raiding warriors. These Vikings are also skilled traders, talented artisans, and capable diplomats. They produce quality goods that are valued by other communities and know how to negotiate to obtain the resources they need. You help prepare goods for trade. There are carefully prepared animal hides, skillfully forged metal tools, and simple but elegant jewelry made from amber and metal. Each item represents hours of specialized work and has real value in an economy based on bartering. The journey to the neighboring community will take several days, and you are chosen to be part of the trading group. It's an honor that recognizes your new position in the community, but also an additional test of your skills and commitment. Long journeys in potentially hostile territory are always dangerous. Preparations for the trip are meticulous. Routes are planned to avoid known dangerous territories. Supplies are carefully calculated to last the journey with a safety margin. Weapons are checked and sharpened. Every detail is important because one mistake could mean death for the entire group. On the night before departure, there's a special ceremony. Offerings are made to the gods to ensure a safe journey and successful trade. Amulets of protection are blessed and distributed. It's a mix of practical preparation and spiritual ritual that reflects the Viking mindset of covering all possible bases. You lie down in your straw bed on the last night before the journey, reflecting on how much you've changed in just 1 week. You arrived in this world as a stranger, completely unsuited for survival. Now you are a respected member of the community, about to embark on an important mission. The transformation wasn't just external. You can feel internal changes too. There is a confidence in your own abilities that you never had before. An acceptance of uncertainty and danger that makes you calmer in the face of challenges. An appreciation for simple things, food, shelter, companionship, that enriches every experience. But perhaps the most profound change is in your understanding of human nature. You have seen people face extreme circumstances with courage and dignity. You have seen how communities can form and stick together through adversity that should destroy them. You have seen how meaning and purpose can be found even in the harshest conditions. This is the true lesson of Viking life. It's not about being physically stronger or more violent than others. It's about developing mental and spiritual resilience that allows you to face any challenge life presents. It's about finding strength in community and meaning in the shared struggle for survival. Tomorrow, you will embark on a new adventure, facing new dangers and challenges. But you are no longer the same person who woke up in this world just 1 week ago. You have been tempered by the fire of the Viking experience and have emerged transformed. Act 6. The vastness of the sea and the intricacies of commerce. The fifth day dawns with a dense fog that seems to envelop the entire world. You wake up before dawn, not by choice, but because your body is now synchronized with the natural rhythms of this life. There's no need for alarm clocks when survival depends on maximizing every available hour of light. The final preparations for the trading expedition begin in the pre-dawn darkness. You help load the boats with goods carefully wrapped in waterproof hides. Each item is strategically positioned to distribute weight and protect against the dampness of the sea. It's a process that requires experience. One mistake in loading could result in the loss of valuable goods or even a shipwreck. The Viking boats are functional works of art, long, narrow, and surprisingly flexible. They are designed to sail in both deep waters and shallow rivers. You perform your first real rowing on open water, and the difference from coastal fishing is immediately apparent. Here, the waves are bigger, more unpredictable, and dry land is much farther away. The morning sea is a living, temperamental entity. The fog creates a ghostly world where the line between water and sky disappears. You navigate by instinct and ancestral knowledge. The Vikings know how to read subtle signs in the water, in the wind, and even in the behavior of seabirds to find direction when visual landmarks disappear. Your first hour at sea is marked by genuine seasickness. The constant and unpredictable motion of the boat makes your stomach churn in a way you've never experienced. You cling to the side of the boat, trying not to vomit, while the other Vikings row with an efficiency born of years of experience. They notice your discomfort, but offer no pity, only practical advice on how to synchronize. You're breathing with the movement of the waves. Gradually, you find your rhythm on the sea. The seasickness subsides as your body adapts, and you begin to appreciate the unique feeling of being completely surrounded by water. There is something both terrifying and liberating about being in a small wooden boat on a vast ocean. You are completely at the mercy of natural forces much greater than yourself. During the journey, you learn about Viking navigation. They use the position of the sun, wave, patterns, and even the taste of the water to determine location and direction. It's a complex knowledge that takes years to master, passed down from generation to generation through practical experience. You try to absorb what you can, knowing that these skills could mean the difference between life and death at sea. The trading group is composed of 8 men in 2 boats. In addition to you, there are specialized artisans, experienced warriors, and an older man who serves as the main negotiator. Each person has a specific role, and you quickly learn that your function is mainly to observe, learn, and help where necessary. The first stop is a small island that serves as a meeting point for various trading communities. As you approach the beach, you can see other boats already anchored, some Viking like yours, others from different peoples with vessel designs you don't recognize. It's a primitive international market, a place where cultures meet for peaceful exchange. The disembarkation process requires skill. The beach is rocky and the waves are treacherous. One wrong move and valuable goods could be lost in the salt water. You help form a human chain to transport goods from the boat to dry land, each transfer being a small victory against the forces of nature. The temporary community on the island is fascinating. Tents from various cultures are scattered across the beach, each displaying unique goods. There are merchants with exotic furs from distant lands, artisans with elaborate jewelry made from materials you don't recognize, and even people selling spices that fill the air with aromas that violently contrast with the familiar smells of fish and sea salt. You watch as your group's negotiator begins trade discussions. There is no currency in the modern sense. Everything is based on direct bartering. The value is determined by need, rarity, and negotiation skill. A well-preserved bear hide might be worth 3 iron spearheads or 5 measures of grain, depending on what each party needs most. During the negotiations, you learn about Viking diplomacy. Although known for their ferocity in battle, Vikings are shrewd and respectful negotiators when engaged in peaceful trade. There are rituals of courtesy that must be observed, offers of hospitality that must be made, and traditional ways of conducting business that ensure all parties are treated fairly. A particularly complex negotiation involves the exchange of forged iron for rare amber. The iron is valuable for its practical utility. It can be made into essential tools and weapons for survival. The amber is valuable for its beauty and perceived mystical properties. It is believed to have protective powers and is highly desired for jewelry and amulets. You watch as each piece of amber is carefully examined under different lights, tested for authenticity, and evaluated for color, clarity, and any inclusions, insects or plants preserved within the fossilized resin. It's a process that requires real expertise. Fake or low-quality amber is not just bad negotiation. It can be seen as a deliberate insult. During a break in negotiations, you're invited to share a meal with merchants from another culture. The food is different from anything you've eaten. Fish prepared with unknown spices, bread made from grains that have a completely new flavor to you, and a fermented drink that is both sweet and strong. This shared meal is more than just nutrition. It's a ritual of trust building in a world where different groups are often in conflict. The willingness to eat together, to temporarily lower defenses, is a significant act of good faith. You participate with the seriousness the situation deserves, knowing you are helping to establish relationships that may benefit your community in the future. The conversation during the meal is conducted through a mix of languages, gestures, and a few common words that serve as a commercial lingua franca. You learn about other lands, other peoples, other ways of living. There are reports of forests so dense that the sun never touches the ground, of mountains so high they are always covered in snow, of deserts where water is more valuable than gold. These stories fundamentally expand your understanding of the world. You realize that Viking life, as harsh as it is just one of many forms of human adaptation to challenging environments. Each culture has developed unique solutions to survival problems, and trade allows these solutions to be shared. As the day progresses, you begin to understand the strategic importance of this trade for Viking survival. It's not just about acquiring luxuries, it's about obtaining essential resources that are not available in Nordic lands: superior quality iron, grains that grow better in other climates, specialized tools that require specific knowledge to manufacture. The negotiations continue well after sunset, conducted by the light of bonfires on the beach. There's a theatrical quality to the process. Each offer and counteroffer is presented with dramatic gestures, and both buyers and sellers know they are participating in a performance as much as a commercial transaction. Finally, agreements are reached. Your group has managed to trade high-quality iron for rare amber, and in addition, has obtained seeds from plants that can grow in the Nordic climate and provide additional nutrition during the winter months. These are acquisitions that could literally mean the difference between life and death during the next cold season. The night on the island is spent in careful vigilance. Although this is theoretically neutral territory, the temptation to simply take others' goods by force always exists. Guard shifts are established, weapons are kept close, and precautions are taken to protect both the goods and the lives of the merchants. You participate in a night watch, looking at the stars over the sea and reflecting on the complexity of this Viking society. They are not just brutal warriors indiscriminately raiding. They are sophisticated people with extensive trade networks, diplomatic skills, and a deep understanding of international economics for their time. During your watch, you hear sounds of the nocturnal sea that are completely new to you. The rhythmic splash of waves against rocks, the distant call of seabirds, and occasionally sounds that might be whales or other large marine creatures. It's a soundscape that speaks of abundant life on the waters, but also of unknown dangers. A strange noise makes you alert the other guards. For several minutes, you stay in total silence, listening and watching. Eventually, you determine that it's just driftwood hitting rocks, but the incident demonstrates how vigilant you must be. In a world without modern security systems, survival depends on healthy paranoia. The sixth day dawns clear and cold. The fog from the previous morning has dissipated, revealing a grayish-blue ocean that stretches to the horizon. It's time to return home, and everyone is eager to begin the journey back with their valuable goods safely stored. The process of loading the boats for the return trip is even more careful than it was on the way out. Now you have items acquired through negotiation that must be protected at all costs. Forged iron is wrapped in multiple hides to prevent rust from saltwater. Seeds are sealed in waterproof containers. Every precaution is taken to ensure nothing is lost. During the trip, the return journey is different from the outward trip. The sea is rougher, and headwinds make rowing more difficult. You discover muscles in your arms and back that you didn't know existed, all of them protesting against the repetitive effort of rowing against waves that seem determined to push you back. But there are also moments of surreal beauty. The sun shining through clouds creates light patterns on the water that are almost hypnotic. Occasionally, you glimpse marine life, schools of silvery fish moving as a single entity, or the dark back of something larger moving in the depths. During a break from rowing, one of the more experienced Vikings points to subtle changes in the water's color and explains that this indicates underwater currents. Knowledge of these currents can speed up journeys or create deadly dangers, depending on how they are navigated. It's another example of the practical wisdom that allows Vikings to survive in environments that would kill less. Experienced people. The approach to your home community is marked by familiar signs. First, the smell of the land carried by the wind. Then, cloud patterns that are characteristic of the interactions between oceanic air and specific terrestrial geography. Finally, recognizable visual landmarks that confirm you are almost home. Disembarking at home is met with genuine joy by the community. Families gather on the beach to receive the merchants, eager to hear about the trip and see what goods were acquired. There are hugs, laughter, and a palpable sense of relief that everyone returned safe and sound. The acquired goods are examined with admiration and gratitude. The quality iron will be used to make better tools that will last longer and work more efficiently. The seeds will be planted in the spring, potentially providing a new source of nutrition. Each item represents a concrete improvement in the community's quality of life. That night, there's a celebration, not a wild party, but a respectful gathering where the trading expedition is honored and stories of the journey are shared. You are invited to contribute with your own observations, and your perspectives as an outsider are valued for the unique insights they offer. During the celebration, you reflect on your complete transformation. A week ago, you were a helpless stranger who could barely take care of yourself. Now you are a respected member of the community who participated in an important commercial mission and contributed to the group's prosperity. But more significantly, you have developed a deep understanding of what it truly means to live, not just to exist or consume, but to participate actively in a community where every person matters, where every contribution has real meaning, where every day is an opportunity to demonstrate value through action. You think about your former life and realize that despite all the comfort and convenience, there was something fundamentally missing. A direct connection to the basic needs of life, a sense of purpose that comes from essential work, an appreciation for every small comfort that comes from knowing what it's like to live without it. Viking life taught you that happiness doesn't come from having everything easy, but from facing difficulties with courage and finding meaning in the struggle. True security doesn't come from external systems of protection, but from strong communities and personal skills. The value of a person is measured not by what they own, but by what they contribute. When you finally lie down in your familiar straw bed, you know you have been fundamentally altered by the experience. You have seen how human beings can prosper even in the most adverse conditions when they work together with a common purpose. You have experienced the deep satisfaction that comes from honest physical work that produces tangible results. More importantly, you have learned that true strength doesn't come from muscles or weapons, but from mental and spiritual resilience that allows you to face any challenge with dignity. You have discovered within yourself resources of courage and determination that you never knew you possessed. This is the final lesson of Viking life, that human beings are capable of much more than we normally demand of ourselves. That when circumstances demand, we can find the strength to survive, prosper, and even find joy in conditions that initially seem impossible. You close your eyes, listening to the familiar sounds of the longhouse, regular breathing, the soft crackle of the central fire, the wind blowing through the cracks in the walls. They are sounds that have become comforting, reminders that you are safe, that you are home, that you are part of something greater than yourself. And as you drift off to sleep, you carry with you not just memories of adventure and hardship, but a transformed understanding of what it means to be truly alive. An appreciation for every moment of peace, every shared meal, every night spent in relative safety. This is the greatest gift the Viking experience offers, not just a history lesson, but a masterclass in living authentically, in finding meaning through adversity, and in discovering the extraordinary strength that resides within the common human spirit when tested by the most extreme circumstances. And as sleep takes you, you know you will carry these lessons with you to whatever world you wake up in, whether it's this brutal but honest world of the Vikings or the modern world of comfort and convenience. Because once you have experienced what it means to live with total intensity, you can never fully return to a passive existence. You have learned the secret the Vikings knew, that true life is not found in the pursuit of security and comfort, but in the willingness to face uncertainty with courage, to find strength in community, and to value every moment because you deeply understand how precious and fragile human existence is. This is the wisdom you now carry, not just as intellectual knowledge, but as a truth lived in every fiber of your being. And it is a wisdom that, once acquired, forever transforms your understanding of what it means to be truly human. Act 7th, the silent threat of winter. But waking on the 7th day brings an even more brutal reality. Winter is coming. You can feel it in the air. There's a subtle change in temperature, a different quality to the wind that cuts through the cracks in the longhouse. For the Vikings, this doesn't just mean additional discomfort, it means the difference between life and death. The Nordic winter is not like the winters you know from modern life. There's no central heating to maintain comfortable temperatures. There are no supermarkets stocked with fresh food imported from warmer climates. Winter here is a silent predator that kills through hunger, cold, and diseases that thrive when human bodies are weakened by deprivation. Preparation for winter begins immediately and involves the entire community. There is no division between male and female work when it comes to survival. Everyone, including children, has specific tasks that must be completed before the first snowfalls make certain activities impossible. You are assigned to help with the collection and storage of firewood, but this doesn't just mean gathering sticks. It means cutting, transporting, and properly storing enough wood to keep fires burning for months of brutal darkness and cold. The amount needed is staggering. Piles of logs that are larger than the longhouses themselves. Each tree must be chosen carefully. Green wood burns poorly and produces excessive smoke that can suffocate people in enclosed spaces. Rotten wood disintegrates quickly and doesn't produce enough heat. Only dry wood of the right species will provide the reliable fuel needed to survive the coldest months. The work of felling trees with Viking tools is brutal beyond modern comprehension. The axe you use is heavy and clumsy, and every blow requires the full force of your entire body. Your hands develop blisters that burst and bleed, then form thick calluses that eventually turn into a kind of human leather that can withstand the constant friction. But cutting is only the beginning. Each log must be manually carried back to the community across irregular and often treacherous terrain. There are no horses or carts to help, only brute human strength and ingenuity to move weights that test the limits of human physical capacity. You learn carrying techniques that Vikings developed through generations. How to use ropes made from plant fibers to create leverage systems that allow one person to move logs that would otherwise require several people, and how to work in coordinated teams where timing is crucial to avoid serious injury or death by crushing. During one of these transport sessions, you witness an accident that perfectly illustrates how dangerous daily Viking life is. A man slips on wet ground while carrying a particularly heavy log. The log rolls over his leg, and the sound of the bone breaking is audible even over the other work noises. There are no ambulances to call, no hospitals to rush to. There is only the traditional knowledge of treating broken bones, knowledge that is only partially effective at best. The injured man will be a burden on the community during the winter months, consuming resources without being able to contribute with physical labor. But no, one suggests abandoning him. Instead, the community reorganizes to compensate for the loss of his working capacity. Tasks are redistributed, schedules are adjusted, and everyone works a little harder to cover what he can no longer do. It's a practical example of how Viking solidarity is not sentimentality. It's survival pragmatism. You help build a makeshift splint using pieces of wood and leather straps. The process is primitive by modern standards, but represents the best that can be done with the available resources. The injured man accepts the treatment with a stoicism that is both impressive and sad. He knows he may be permanently lame, but he also knows that complaining won't change anything. The storage of the collected wood is a science in itself. It must be stacked in a way that allows air circulation to prevent rotting, but also protected from rain and snow that could render it unusable. Elaborate structures are built specifically for firewood storage, structures that are almost as important as the longhouses themselves for winter survival. As you work on building these storage structures, you learn about Viking carpentry. Without modern nails or screws, everything must be joined using joinery techniques that require extreme precision. Each joint must be hand-cut to fit perfectly, and the result must be strong enough to support the weight of tons of wood. The work is frustrating at first. Your early attempts at cutting joints result in loose fits that don't support weight properly. But gradually, with patient guidance from experienced artisans, you develop the skill of seeing how the wood wants to be cut, how to work with the grain instead of against it. There is a deep satisfaction when you finally produce a joint that fits perfectly. It's a small victory, but in a world where every small victory can contribute to survival, even small successes have real meaning. You are contributing with a real skill to the community's preparation for winter. Parallel to the woodworking, food preservation is happening with increasing urgency. The autumn harvest must be processed and stored in a way that will last through the months when nothing grows. This means preservation techniques that are as much art as science: salting, smoking, fermenting, and drying. You participate in the process of making jerky, dried meat that can last for months if prepared correctly. The process is laborious and requires perfect timing. The meat must be cut into strips of exact thickness, salted in the right amount, and dried under specific conditions of temperature and humidity. Too much salt and the meat becomes inedible. Too little and it rots before drying properly. Drying too quickly hardens the exterior, while the interior remains damp and prone to rotting. Drying too slowly gives bacteria time to begin decomposition before preservation is complete. The knowledge needed for successful food preservation was developed through generations of trial and error. Each family has slightly different techniques that have been refined through experience. Failures in food preservation don't just mean bad meals, they mean real hunger during the winter months. You work alongside Viking women who demonstrate impressive expertise in food preservation. They can determine the exact point of salting just by touch. They can judge drying conditions by the smell of the air. They can predict how different cuts of meat will behave during the preservation process. This knowledge is transmitted through observation and practice, not through books or formal classes. You learn by trying, failing, being corrected, and trying again. It's education in the truest sense. Knowledge that is literally vital for survival being passed from an experienced person to a learner. During the jerky making process, you gain a new appreciation for protein. In modern life, meat is abundant and cheap. Here, every piece of meat represents hours of dangerous work: hunting wild animals, processing carcasses, preserving the meat against deterioration. To waste protein is literally to waste life. The work of hunting intensifies as winter approaches. Animals must be killed and processed before they migrate to warmer areas or go into hibernation. This means hunting expeditions that can last for days and take groups of men far from the relative safety of the community. You participate in one of these hunting expeditions and quickly learn that hunting with Viking weapons is completely different from anything you've imagined. There are no firearms to kill animals at a distance. There are only spears, primitive bows, and traps that require close approach to animals that are often larger and more dangerous than the hunters. The first hunt is a moose, a massive animal with antlers that can easily pierce a man. The strategy involves tracking the animal through the forest, gradually surrounding it, and then attacking in a coordinated manner with spears. It's a process that requires extreme courage, perfect timing, and a willingness to risk serious injury or death. When the moose is finally brought down, the real work begins. The carcass must be processed immediately. The meat is separated from the bone, the organs removed and prepared, and the hide removed and prepared for tanning. Nothing is wasted because nothing can be wasted. Even bones are saved to make tools and utensils. The butchering process is brutal and bloody. Your hands become covered in blood up to your wrists, and the smell of blood and internal organs clings to your clothes and hair. But you work methodically because you understand that this meat will feed the community for weeks during the dark months that are coming. Carrying the processed meat back to the community through the forest is another test of physical endurance. The weight is distributed among the expedition members, but even so, you are carrying more weight than you thought was physically possible. Every step is an effort, and the journey that took hours to go takes twice as long to return. But when you finally arrive home with the successful hunt, the reception is one of genuine joy. This meat represents security for the community during the winter. Children who might have gone hungry will now have enough protein to survive the cold months. It's a victory that is celebrated by everyone. The processing of the meat continues for days. Some cuts are cooked immediately for a feast that celebrates the successful hunt. Others are prepared for preservation through various methods. Nothing is lost. Even the blood is used to make a type of sausage that provides vital nutrition during the winter. You participate in the preparation of all the products derived from the moose. You learn to scrape and clean the hide for tanning, to cut and prepare bones for tool making, and to process tendons to make strong thread and rope. It's a crash course in total sustainability, using every part of a resource. Because resources are too precious to waste. The tanning of the hide is particularly laborious. The leather must be cleaned completely, then treated with a mixture of animal brains, fermented urine, and other substances that break down the fibers and make the leather flexible. The process takes weeks and requires constant attention to prevent the leather from hardening or rotting. Working with these materials, you develop a tolerance for smells and textures that initially made you vomit. Fermented urine has an odor that is almost unbearable, but it is essential for proper tanning. Animal brains have a viscous texture that is repugnant, but contains enzymes necessary to process the hide. This adaptation to conditions that are objectively unpleasant is part of the Viking transformation. You learn that survival often requires doing things that are uncomfortable, disgusting, or even dangerous. Personal comfort becomes much less important than the practical needs of the community. As weeks pass, you notice changes in your own body. Muscles you never knew you had have developed through constant physical labor. Your hands, once soft, are now covered in thick calluses that allow you to handle tools and rough materials without pain. Your skin has been tanned and hardened by constant exposure to the elements. But the most profound changes are mental. You have developed a constant awareness of resources. How many days of food are left? How much firewood has been collected? What tools need repair before winter? This resource awareness becomes automatic, a mental calculator that is always running in the back of your mind. You have also developed a tolerance for discomfort you never imagined possible. Cold that once would have been unbearable is now just an inconvenience. Hunger that once would have been panic is now just a reminder to work harder to get food. Tiredness that once would have been debilitating is now just a normal part of daily existence. This growing resilience is accompanied by a deeper appreciation for small pleasures. A hot meal after a day of hard work tastes better than any gourmet food you've ever eaten. The warmth of a fire after hours in the cold is more luxurious than any resort. The comfort of a dry bed after days of rain is more valuable than any 5-star hotel. Act 8. The Gap of Hunger and the Unbreakable Spirit. The first winter storms arrive earlier than expected. You wake one morning to find that snow has fallen overnight. Not just a little snow, but a thick layer that completely transforms the landscape. The world you've known for weeks is now covered by a white mantle that makes familiar landmarks disappear. Snow changes everything about daily life. Walking through it requires more energy and makes long journeys dangerous or impossible. Animals become more difficult to hunt because they leave obvious tracks, but also because they are desperate and potentially more aggressive. The collection of resources like firewood becomes more challenging because it's buried under layers of snow. But snow also brings opportunities. It can be melted for water when other sources freeze. It provides additional insulation for structures when strategically piled against walls and allows for forms of transportation. Simple sleds that are impossible in other seasons. You learn to make and use Viking sleds, simple but effective devices made of curved wood and tied with ropes. They allow you to transport heavy loads through the snow with much less effort than manual carrying. But they require a specific technique to use effectively. How to distribute weight, how to pull without slipping, how to maneuver through irregular terrain. The first weeks of real winter test all the preparation the community has made. Temperatures drop to levels that make the air hurt when you breathe. Wind cuts through any clothing like ice knives. Simply keeping warm requires the constant burning of firewood, which consumes carefully stored supplies. Inside the longhouses, life becomes much more restricted. There's no possibility of outdoor activities when storms are blowing. Everyone must live in very close proximity, sharing limited space, air that becomes increasingly stale with smoke, and resources that gradually dwindle. This forced proximity reveals aspects of human nature that are invisible during easier times. Small irritations become larger conflicts when people can't escape each other. Personality. Differences that were tolerable become sources of serious tension when everyone is stressed by survival. You witness arguments over resources. Who is using too much firewood? Who is eating more than their fair share? Who is not contributing adequately to communal tasks? These arguments are not about greed or selfishness. They are genuine fears that limited resources won't last through the winter. But you also witness extraordinary examples of personal sacrifice for the common good. A mother gives her portion of food to a sick child. An elderly man works on necessary repairs despite painful arthritis. A family shares their provisions with neighbors whose supplies were lost in an accident. These acts of generosity are not sentimentality. They are practical investments in the community's survival. Everyone understands that if the community fails, individuals will also fail. Helping others during difficult times is a form of insurance that can save your own life later. The days of winter are brutally short. The sun rises late and sets early, leaving long hours of darkness that must be lit by fires that consume precious firewood. The constant darkness affects everyone's mood. There's a melancholy that settles over the community like a heavy mantle. During these long winter nights, you learn about Viking entertainment. Without books, television, or any modern form of amusement, people depend on each other for mental stimulation. Stories are told and retold, each narrator adding details or changing emphasis to keep the audience engaged. Games are played using simple pieces carved from wood or bone. These games are not just for fun. They are mental exercises that keep minds sharp during months of limited physical activity. Strategy, memory, and quick thinking are skills that can save lives when spring arrives and normal activities resume. Music is made with primitive instruments, bone flutes, animal skin drums, and mainly, human voices. The songs are often about themes of survival, loss, and hope. They serve not only for entertainment, but as ways of emotionally processing the difficulties of Viking life. You try to contribute to these nightly activities, but you quickly discover that your modern skills are of little use here. You don't know the traditional stories, you can't play Viking instruments, and you don't have the memory games that have been developed through generations of practice. It's another reminder of how specific and specialized Viking culture is. But gradually, you find ways to contribute. Your perspectives as an outsider sometimes offer interesting insights into familiar stories. Your willingness to learn is appreciated by the elders who enjoy teaching. and your genuine gratitude for the community's hospitality creates bonds that transcend language and cultural barriers. During a particularly cold night, when the wind is howling so loudly it sounds like it will tear down the longhouse, you participate in a ceremony that honors dead ancestors. It's not a somber ceremony, but a celebration of lives that contributed to the community's survival. Stories are told about heroes who face challenges even greater than the current ones. These stories serve multiple purposes. They entertain during long, dark nights, they preserve important knowledge about how to deal with specific crises, and they inspire courage, reminding everyone that others have survived similar hardships. They are essential psychological tools for maintaining morale during the year's most difficult months. One of the stories is about a particularly brutal winter decades ago when food supplies ran out completely before the end of the season. The community survived by eating tree bark, roots that are normally considered inedible, and even leather from equipment that wasn't absolutely essential. It's a story that reminds you that the current situation, however difficult, could be much worse. Hearing these stories of extreme survival gives you perspective on your own difficulties, your current discomforts. The cold, the monotonous food, the cramped space are luxuries compared to what others have faced. It's a lesson in gratitude that is both humbling and strengthening. As winter progresses, resources begin to get visibly lower. Food portions are gradually reduced to make supplies last longer. Firewood is used more conservatively, resulting in lower internal temperatures. Everyone is constantly cold, constantly a little hungry, constantly tired. But there is no despair. Instead, there's a grim determination to endure through the remaining months. Everyone knows that spring will eventually arrive, that there will again be opportunities to hunt, fish, and gather. The only question is whether the resources will last long enough. You participate in expeditions to find supplementary sources of nutrition during the winter. This means digging through the snow to find buried roots, searching for trees that might still have nuts or dried fruits, and even trying to fish through holes cut in the ice of frozen lakes. Ice fishing is particularly challenging. First, a hole must be cut through ice that can be several feet thick. This requires hours of work with primitive tools. Then, you must fish in water that is so cold that a few drops splashed on your skin cause immediate pain. The fish caught through ice fishing are small and few, but they represent vital protein during a time when other sources are scarce. Every fish is processed completely. Even the scales are saved to make glue. It's another example of the Viking mentality of utilizing absolutely everything. During one of these ice fishing expeditions, you witness an accident that could easily have been fatal. One of the fishermen slips on the wet ice and falls partially through the hole into the freezing water. The water is so cold that it can kill in minutes through thermal shock and hypothermia. The community's response is immediate and coordinated. Ropes are thrown to pull the man out of the water. Dry clothes are found to replace his soaked ones. A fire is lit immediately to begin the rewarming process. Everyone knows exactly what to do because similar accidents have happened before. The man survives, but the incident serves as a somber reminder of how thin the line between life and death is during the Viking winter. One false step, one moment of inattention, a piece of equipment that fails at the wrong time. Any of these things can turn a routine survival task into a life or death situation. These constant risks create a mentality of vigilance that becomes second nature. You learn to test ice before trusting your weight to it, to check equipment before each use, to always have escape routes planned before you start any potentially dangerous task. It's a healthy paranoia that keeps people alive. As winter reaches its deepest point, the community faces its greatest crisis. An accidental fire destroys a significant portion of the stored food supplies. It was no one's fault, just the kind of accident that can happen when people are living in close proximity with open fires. But the consequences are potentially catastrophic. The loss of food means that rationing must become even more severe. Meals that were already small become even smaller. People who were already losing weight begin to show real signs of malnutrition. Children cry from hunger, and their parents have no way to console them. But instead of panicking or despairing, the community responds with even greater determination. Expeditions are organized to search for any possible source of additional food. Hunters risk dangerous conditions to track any animal that might be available. Even foods that are normally considered undesirable are considered viable options. You participate in one of these desperate food search expeditions. The group walks through deep snow in temperatures that make the air hurt in your lungs, looking for any sign of animal life. It's an exhausting work that consumes more calories than you will likely recover, but it's done because to do nothing would mean accepting starvation. After days of searching, the group finds a small herd of deer that got trapped in a protected valley. It's a discovery that literally saves lives. The hunt is successful, and the resulting meat provides enough protein for the community to survive through the rest of the winter. But the experience of near starvation leaves permanent marks on everyone. There is an even deeper appreciation for every piece of food, an even sharper awareness of how precious resources are, and there is a visceral knowledge of how close death always is in conditions of extreme survival. During the final weeks of winter, when supplies are at their lowest but spring is still weeks away, the community faces its final test of endurance. It's a period the Vikings call the hunger gap, the time between when winter supplies run out and when new food sources become available. It's during this period that you truly understand what Viking survival means. It's not about dramatic moments of heroism or adventure. It's about the ability to keep functioning when you are constantly cold, constantly hungry, constantly tired. It's about finding the strength to do necessary work even when your body is begging for rest and nutrition. You lose weight during these final weeks, weight your body couldn't afford to lose. Your muscles, built through months of intense physical work, begin to consume themselves as your body searches for calories wherever it can find them. Your energy dwindles to levels that make even simple tasks challenging, but you persist because there is no choice. Spring will eventually arrive, but only if you survive long enough to see it. Every day becomes a small but significant victory against the forces that want to kill you. Every night spent in relative safety is one step closer to survival. And then, almost miraculously, signs of spring begin to appear. First, just subtle changes in the quality of the light and air that experienced people recognize. Then, small green shoots appearing through the melting snow. Birds returning from winter migrations, ice breaking on rivers and lakes. The arrival of spring after the most difficult winter of your life is met with a joy that is almost religious in its intensity. It's not just relief at having survived, it's a literal rebirth, a resurrection of possibilities that seemed dead forever. You emerge from this winter as a fundamentally different person. Physically, you are leaner but stronger, more resilient but more aware of your limitations. Mentally, you have developed a perspective on life and death, comfort and hardship that you could never have acquired through normal experience. But perhaps the most important change is spiritual. You have experienced true community, not just people living close to each other, but people genuinely dependent on each other for survival. You have seen how human beings can transcend individual limitations when they work together with a common purpose. Spring brings not only relief, but a renewal of hope and energy. There is work to be done, fields to plant, structures to repair, resources to replenish. But it's work done with the knowledge that surviving the winter has proven the community is resilient enough to face any challenge. You participate in this work of renewal with an energy that surprises even yourself. After months of conserving strength just for basic survival, having the energy for constructive projects is almost intoxicating. Every seed planted is an act of faith in the future. Every repaired tool is an investment in future prosperity. And as you work alongside people who have become more than friends, who have become family through shared adversity, you understand that you have experienced something that few modern humans will ever experience. You have lived authentically, without mediation or protection, face to face with the fundamental realities of human existence. This experience has changed you forever. No matter where life takes you from here, You will carry with you the knowledge that you are capable of much more than you ever imagined, that you can find strength when you thought there was no more strength, that you can find meaning and even joy in the most adverse circumstances. You have learned that true wealth is not measured in material possessions, but in the quality of relationships and the strength of community. That true security doesn't come from external systems of protection, but from internal resilience and mutual support. That true happiness doesn't require the absence of difficulties, but the ability to find meaning even during the most severe trials. Now, as you lie down to sleep in your modern bed, with your soft blanket and your heated house, you carry with you a deep gratitude that goes beyond words. Every comfort you have, clean water from the tap, fresh food from the refrigerator, warmth from the heater, represents luxuries that the Vikings could only dream of. But you also carry with you something more valuable than any material comfort, the knowledge of your own inner strength. You now know that within you exists the same untamable flame that allowed the Vikings not only to survive, but to prosper in a world that should have destroyed them. This flame is not just physical strength or courage in battle, it is the ability to find hope when there seems to be no reason for hope. It's the willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. It's the wisdom of knowing that true life is not found in the pursuit of comfort, but in the pursuit of meaning. The Vikings who lived 1,000 years ago faced challenges that tested every limit of human endurance. They didn't have modern medicine to cure diseases. They didn't have technology to make work easier. They didn't have social security systems to protect them against hunger. All they had was each other and an iron determination to never give up. And yet they not only survived, they created a culture that produced some of the greatest explorers, artists, and innovators in human history. They sailed unknown oceans, established colonies in distant lands, and created works of art that we still admire today. They did all this not in spite of their difficulties, but because of them. The difficulties they faced forced them to develop qualities that people in easier societies rarely need to. Develop resilience that comes from facing real adversity, creativity that comes from having to solve problems with limited resources, courage that comes from confronting genuine dangers regularly. But perhaps most importantly, they developed a perspective on life that valued intensity over longevity, meaning over comfort, and community over individualism. They knew that life was fragile and brief, so they lived it with a passion that is rare in societies where security is guaranteed. This Viking perspective on life has important lessons for modern people. Not that we should abandon the comforts and security we have built. These represent real progress and a genuine reduction in human suffering. But we can learn from the Viking mindset on how to face challenges, how to value relationships, and how to find purpose even in difficult circumstances. When you face difficulties in your modern life, problems at work, tensions in relationships, financial worries, you can remember the Vikings, who faced the real possibility of death by starvation, cold, or violence, and still found ways to live with dignity and even joy. Your problems are real and valid, but they are problems you have the strength to face. Within you is the same resilience that allowed your ancestors to survive the most brutal winters, the same creativity that allowed them to prosper with limited resources, the same courage that allowed them to navigate unknown oceans. Modern life offers comforts and opportunities that the Vikings couldn't imagine, but it can also create a sense of disconnection from the fundamental realities of existence. It can be easy to forget how precious life is when it seems guaranteed. It can be easy to take relationships for granted when we don't depend on them for physical survival. The Viking experience reminds you that every day is a gift, every meal is a blessing, every night spent in safety is a miracle. Not because we should live in constant fear, but because recognizing the preciousness of life allows us to appreciate it more fully. It also reminds us that human beings are capable of extraordinary resilience when needed, that we can endure more hardship, overcome more obstacles, and find more strength than we normally believe is possible. This capacity hasn't disappeared. It still exists within each of us, waiting to be discovered when necessary. The Vikings were not a race of superhumans. They were ordinary people who were placed in extraordinary circumstances and responded with extraordinary determination and creativity. They show us that human greatness is not about having special advantages, but about how we respond to the challenges we face. And as you prepare to sleep, letting relaxation take hold of your tired but comfortable body, you can reflect on this fundamental truth. You are a descendant of survivors. Every person who contributed to your existence managed to live long enough to reproduce, facing challenges that were often more severe than anything you will likely face. This lineage of resilience flows through you. It's part of your DNA, part of your heritage as a human being. When you need strength, it is there. When you need courage, it is available. When you need wisdom to navigate difficulties, you can access the accumulated wisdom of generations of ancestors who faced and overcame their own challenges. The Viking story is not just about the past. It's about the human potential that exists in all of us. It's about the ability to transform adversity into strength, isolation into community, and fear into courage. It's about finding meaning not in the absence of difficulties, but in how we choose to face them. As you drift off to sleep, surrounded by the comfort and security of modern life, you carry with you a new understanding of your own capabilities. You know that if necessary, you could face challenges much greater than you imagined possible. You know that within you are resources of strength and resilience that have been tested and proven through thousands of years of human history. This is not just an intellectual lesson. It's a visceral knowledge, a truth that has been felt in every fiber of your being during your experience in the Viking world. It's a knowledge that will forever change how you see challenges, how you value comforts, and how you appreciate relationships. And perhaps most importantly, it's a knowledge that brings peace. Peace that comes from knowing you are stronger than your fears. Peace that comes from understanding that difficulties are opportunities for growth, not just obstacles to happiness. Peace that comes from being connected to the long lineage of human endurance. Sleep well, knowing you are part of an extraordinary story of human survival. Rest peacefully, carrying within you the strength of the Vikings, the wisdom of ancestors, and the ability to face any challenge the future may bring, with dignity, courage, and unwavering hope. The Vikings who lived 1,000 years ago faced their challenges and found their strength. Now you know yours, and in the knowledge of that strength, in the recognition of that capacity, in the gratitude for this discovery, you can find the deepest peace of all, the peace of knowing who you truly are and what you are truly capable of. This is the final lesson of the Vikings, that true strength is not in never falling, but in always getting up, that true courage is not in the absence of fear, but in acting despite fear, that true victory is not in avoiding all difficulties, but in finding meaning and growth through them. Carry this wisdom with you as you enter restful sleep. Let it integrate into your dreams, into your rest, into your preparation for a new day. Tomorrow, you will wake up still in your comfortable and modern life, but you will wake up as a different person, someone who knows their own strength, who truly values their blessings, and who carries within them the inextinguishable flame of the human spirit that allowed the Vikings and allows you to prosper against all odds. Sleep well, modern warrior. Your Viking ancestors would be proud.